It's
3 minutes.
They're watching you.
Okay.
Can they hear you well?
I think so. I think they're when I put
Okay.
Yeah. Bring it ever so slightly closer. Um, do 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 do.
Do you need this?
No, I don't need that.
Okay. Just trying to.
No, give it to me. I don't need it at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Hey, wonderful people out in the universe. We're still getting ourselves together. It's not quite 8 o'clock. Maureen might have to fuss me out and punch me, but since I'm sitting to her left, that's her weak arm.
Don't underestimate the left arm
Yeah. And our
or
next
left elbow.
and our next Bitcoin for Introverts, we're going to talk about her beating me up and what we can do to stop that from happening.
Nobody's gonna believe you. I'm not that violent.
You're not that violent. How violent would you say you were?
I'm not violent at all.
If you're not in court, she is not violent. If you are in court, you might need to pray to all the gods, the old and the new ones. See, she just admitted it.
I didn't admit anything.
No, silence means you admit it.
Silence also means
Consent, that's what it means.
what? Where did you get that from?
The police?
That is not a thing.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
I have a criminal complexion, so I assume it's the case. So if they say, can I search your car, and I don't say anything, that's implied consent.
But you know what to say if they said that, right?
Lawyer. No.
No. Then lawyer.
Hi guys, welcome in wonderful audience. Welcome to Bitcoin for Introverts, the STO version. We're going to talk about securitized tokens offerings. My name is Samson Williams from Axes and Eggs.
And I'm Maureen Murat from Crowdfunding Advisors. I knew that.
She forgot where she was from ever so slightly just for a moment, but she's nonetheless a brilliant securities. I don't think she's a brilliant securities lawyer because I don't think you can actually be a blockchain lawyer.
There's no such thing.
There's no such thing as a blockchain lawyer because blockchain is a technology. It's sort of like saying you were an HTML or a Linux lawyer. It sort of just sounds stupid.
Okay. I wouldn't say that, but okay.
So what are we going to talk about?
So first we'll talk about what an STO is, and then we'll go into why there's so much hype around it. But before we do that, I have to give my disclaimer, of course. And so even though I am a lawyer, I am not your lawyer. So I ask that you not solely rely on what I say today to determine whether you should be, engaging in launching an STO, ICO, or whatever you want to call it. Do you have a disclaimer, Twitter Esquire?
I'm only a lawyer on Twitter, at HustleFundBaby. So if you need non-legal bad advice, you can ask me that.
All right, duly noted. So where do you want to start? You want to start about what an STO is?
Yeah, tell us what an STO is.
So I'll give you the textbook type version. So essentially an STO is where a token, a crypto token or cryptographic token is where the value of that token is derived from it being tradable as a digital asset. And so what does that mean? If we think of traditional tradable assets, we think of stocks and bonds and things of that nature. And generally what comes with that are voting rights and dividends and all that. But with an STO, that securitized token is actually a line of code that you've assigned this value to, and presumably you could trade that line of code. Does that make sense?
I don't get how we're trading a line of code. You said a lot of words that might not make sense, like voting rights and equity and whatnot. So could you back up and unpack that first?
So, and what I said was, and if you were paying attention, you'd hear me, that traditionally when you are raising funds via SEC or in a regulated fashion, what you're actually trading in exchange for investments are equity or stocks or bonds, etc. But in the STO model, those don't necessarily exist. And what you're actually trying to trade is this digital asset. So it's this thing that has this digital component. And in this instance, the token is a line of computer code. It's not something you can touch. It's not something you can necessarily put in a box, but it has value.
So why would I want an STO?
Well, you're asking the wrong person because I'm not doing STO. But I think what is, what's the word? Not beneficial, but what gives the STO some of the hype is because ICOs have garnered such negative attention. And so it's kind of one of those, let's find a new way that's not so new to do something. And like I said, even though the STOs don't necessarily have the same type of characteristics as public offerings, it's very, very similar to one because you're admitting that what you're offering is something that has to be regulated, which is a security.
So you just said it's not something new. What do you mean by that?
What's not something new?
You said an STO isn't something new.
In the sense that what you're saying is you're admitting that what you are offering to investors is a security. That's not new. We've been offering securities for years, for decades, longer than we've both been alive.
Combined or individually?
I don't know how old you are. So I'm going to say longer than I've been alive.
So if STOs aren't anything new, why are we calling them STOs and not whatever they're supposed to be called?
I'm not sure I know what they're supposed to be called.
I thought they were called securities.
They're security tokens, right? Because the token still represents something. Granted, not all tokens are created the same, so it depends on your project. But I say it's nothing new because the way that you're raising funds is not something new.
So are you saying that we're actually at the end of the day just talking about something called crowdfunding?
Well, I'm partial to crowdfunding. So in a sense, it is because you are getting a large group of people and you are collecting or receiving smaller investments from that large group of people to meet a goal. So for the most part, that is crowdfunding.
Brilliant. Okay, so now that I know that we're talking about crowdfunding, so STOs, securitized token offerings, are actually just crowdfunding. What are the type of crowdfunding that are out there that might apply to these STO digital things?
So there are two popular ways that people are raising funds via the STOs. One is Regulation D under the Securities Act, and another newer way is Regulation A+. And they each have their own requirements or criteria. So it just kind of depends on how much you're trying to raise and how much information you have to give to your investors. But essentially, at the end of the day, because you are taking on investors in exchange for these tokens that are now not going to just simply be backed by an idea, which is what ICOs were doing. They're more so backed by an actual business with assets and revenue. So you are able to raise funds in a fashion that is compliant with SEC rules.
So do you have to be compliant to SEC rules? Can't we just wing it?
Well, I think that time is over. There are plenty of people who were able to wing it a couple years ago, but I think over time that has not been an option for people. And that's also why I think STOs became a thing, right? So now they're like, well, we don't want to be a fully compliant, I shouldn't say fully. We don't want to be a traditional private placement, right? So we'll just call it an STO. But then you have to do everything required for a private placement to raise these funds under an STO.
What's a private placement?
This is the way that you raise money from people that you either know or from a smaller group of people. So that meaning that you can't put it out on the mainstream like a public offering. So you're not selling stocks like Apple or Google or anything like that. This is all, the private placements are considered unregistered securities.
I thought all securities had to be registered, hence why lawyers have jobs.
No. One, there are so many lawyers and we all do many different things. But as far as securities go, there's not just one type of security, and there's not just one type to raise money to offer that security.
Okay, so let me recap very quickly, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you will, because you're already invading all my personal space.
Oh, am I?
Into me.
Okay.
Thank you. Got to talk about our personal space when we're having our introvert moments.
Okay. FYI, you take up more space than I do.
You calling me fat?
No. I'm just saying. But go ahead. What were you?
Wow, you're vicious. So vicious.
I just wanted to put it on the record. But you were saying.
You put on the record that I was fat.
Duly noted. You were wrapping it up.
I was wrapping it up. So STOs, ICOs, they're actually called crowdfunding. Yes?
I say crowdfunding on steroids.
They're crowdfunding on steroids. Crowdfunding, can we call it crowdfunding 2.0 or 3.0?
3.0.
Crowdfunding 3.0. What was crowdfunding 2.0?
Equity crowdfunding.
Oh, equity crowdfunding. And so does that have to relate with the Jobs Act?
Yes.
So how is it related to the Jobs Act?
Equity crowdfunding?
Yeah.
So back in 2016, Title III of the Jobs Act under the Obama administration allowed for everyday people, who we call retail investors, to invest in businesses. And the issuers, these people, the businesses who were raising the money, could raise up to $1 million within a 12-month period. And so that gave people who were everyday people the opportunity to kind of diversify their portfolio and also invest in businesses that they believe in. I think it was meant to be somewhat of a community builder, and then ICOs came and kind of took some of the steam from that.
How did ICOs take the steam from a regulated thing?
Well, ICOs are not regulated.
Oh, so
nobody wants to go through all the paperwork that you have to submit. I should say nobody, but most people don't want to go through the paperwork that you have to submit to the SEC to be able to raise funds.
How much paperwork are we talking about?
So for each type, it's different. If we're talking about regulation crowdfunding, it's a, 20 page application or document. And it's called the Form C, and you have to go through who the issuers are, who the directors of your company are, any financials, etc.
So it's a form written by lawyers for other lawyers.
To help fill out. How much does it cost for lawyers to help you fill this out? I am not going to give you a number because everybody charges something different. But I think...
How about a range?
That's a good question. I think the SEC website tells you the range. They do.
Well, I'm not an SEC website.
Well, I'm telling you, you can go on the SEC website and find the numbers that you think you need. I mean, I've heard low, prices on the legal fees on the low end and some on the really high end. So it just depends.
So it costs the low end to the high end to get your form paperwork filled out from one lawyer to help you for another lawyer. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't understand that. I need clarification.
Stop legalizing me and answer the questions for the audience.
I can't answer a question that I don't understand. Say that again.
So as a Twitter Esquire, unofficial lawyer, you might be looking at paying anywhere between $16,000, which is a good mid-range price. You might get as low as $8,000 or $6,000, depending on who you're working with and if you have all your stuff in order. But you might be on the other end of upwards to $20,000 or $30,000 if all your paperwork is FUBAR. Because in addition to your, Victoria is laughing there in the background, but in addition to your Form C, there's some other things that you need, like certified financials. You need a CPA.
Depending on how much you're raising, yes. You also need marketing and possibly, other things that require a business to work. You probably need to register your business, things of that nature.
So we're not going to get a number out of you?
No.
No, fair enough. So
we're going to go, it's case by case basis.
So on a case-by-case basis, Maureen will charge you to fill out your Form C, as will other lawyers out there in the universe. So talking a little bit more, we talked a little bit about the regulation crowdfunding. So that's called Reg CF. What's the price point difference between Reg CF and Reg A?
So under Reg CF, regulation crowdfunding, you can raise up to $1 million. With Reg A or A plus, because there are tiers, the highest you can raise is $50 million.
50 million. So in Reg CF, I can raise $1 million. In Reg A, I can raise up to $50 million. How do I raise $51 million?
So if you want to raise more than that threshold, then the next step is to possibly go with a Regulation D.
So what is a Reg D?
So Reg D under the Securities Act allows you to raise an unlimited amount of money, but there are different sections. So it depends on if you're trying to raise an unlimited amount of money and you want to offer it to non-accredited investors. If that's the case, then there are some restrictions there. Or if you want to say you only want to offer your security to accredited investors, then there are other rules there too. So it just depends. And that is the most popular way I think people have been raising funds for STOs, because that's what we're supposed to be talking about, for STOs and other
I thought we said STOs
blockchain-based projects.
I thought STOs were crowdfunding.
Yes, but we also want to discuss what the hype is around it, because clearly crowdfunding isn't what's doing it, right?
So
calling it crowdfunding is not appealing.
Oh, so
unfortunately, I'm not saying, because if it was, then we'd be
all in
crowdfunding.
my space.
If it was, then we'd be crowdfunding.
So no, I'm just trying to understand. So crowdfunding and STO, securitized token offerings, is there a fundamental difference?
Yes, because of what you're offering is different.
I thought we were offering either equity, debt, or something.
That's under regulation crowdfunding. Under STOs, you're offering a token that may or may not be valuable in one sense. And the other thing is the token is actually just a line of computer code that gives you hopefully access to something in the future.
This is my token, right? For my STO.
Okay.
So you're not getting my phone, you're getting a token that represents some equity in my phone or a stake in my phone, or you're just getting this thing.
So with STOs, you don't get equity. That's what the main difference is between the traditional way, and that's why I was trying to get back to STOs. Between the traditional way versus how you would raise money with an STO. So with the STO, you're not giving equity. And like I said earlier, for traditional fundraising models, if you're going to do it the either regulated way, what you're offering when you're trying to get money from investors is equity and stock and things of that nature. With the STO, you're offering this token that is, I keep saying, a computer code that potentially could be something used later on a platform, hopefully, or you could exchange it on a crypto exchange, which is the most popular way to liquidate them.
What does that mean, liquidate?
To turn it into cash.
So I can take my token thingamajig, if this comes off, and I can turn it into cash because it doesn't actually represent ownership in anything.
Right.
So why would I do that then?
Because as far as liquidity goes, you still have to take into consideration that for STOs, because there's no equity, there's no voting rights, there are no dividends paid out regularly, unless people write that into their plan. But generally speaking, the STO still kind of works like an ICO, right? Where it's non-traditional. But now we're saying we're going to at least admit that we're offering a security. At least the investment scheme that we're putting together is a security.
So you're saying, now I think I got it. I was a little confused. I apologize, I'm slow. So we started off with crowdfunding for equity and debt. We've moved on to STOs, securitized token offerings, meaning we're going to give you a line of code. We're selling this we're raising money with this line of code.
Which is a digital asset.
Which is a digital asset. So you're getting a digital asset, you're not getting equity in the business that's necessarily issuing the digital asset.
Right.
Oh, okay, I think I'm clear now.
And then if we break down what a digital asset is, right? So an asset is this thing that can have intrinsic value, right? That comes from it, or it's acquired value. So over time it becomes valuable. And then you add the digital component to it. So it could be that thing in a digital form. So maybe not the piece of your cell phone, but a file could be a digital asset. Mm-hmm. A photo could be a digital asset because it's on your computer or online.
I have a question for you regarding securitized token offerings. Assume is looking at me for the moment.
Wondering if you guys are taking questions right now.
Sure, we can take questions. Let me ask this one question.
Okay.
So when we talk, I hear about STOs, people say, hey, what about on real estate? I want to securitize this entire building and tokenize this entire building. How would that work for a real estate deal?
So I think that we have to leave it to the lawyers to kind of figure that out.
Are you a lawyer?
Yes, but I am not a real estate lawyer, and I don't come up with the tokenomics. I think part of that is that if you are an issuer, you're a business, and you come up with this great idea to tokenize something, then you should have a structure. I'm not, creating your business plan for you. But I think that there are different ways to do it, right? Because a building has different components. You could securitize maybe the actual title of the land, so you break it up. You could securitize the building in the sense that everybody's token means something for that building. It all just depends on what the end goal is.
Could a token represent 1 square foot?
It could. A token could represent anything.
So you have a building that's 1 million square feet, right? It has 1 million tokens, and each token costs $1,000 each.
Okay.
And so you can, using your Reg A, Reg D, you could issue 1 million tokens at $1,000 each.
That is what people are doing. But let me just be clear. Just because people are doing these STOs and things of that nature does not mean that the SEC has said that the STO is something that you can use to raise funds. In my opinion, whether you call it an STO, an ICO, a TGO, or TOG, when you submit that whatever you're offering is a security, so it is an investment product, then it doesn't matter what you call it. You still have to go through the proper channels to offer it.
It doesn't matter what I call this thing, it's probably still going to fall in a Reg A, Reg CF, Reg D bucket.
If you call it a security, yes.
Suppose it acts like a security, but I don't call it that.
You still have to go by the SEC rules. So again, it doesn't matter what you call it. You could call it ready?
What?
A utility token. And it can still be, because we haven't heard that in a while,
that's
right?
That's true.
But it still can be considered a security, even though you call it a utility token. So that's my point. Like, it doesn't necessarily matter what you call it. It's how you use it. That's what the regulators are concerned about, how you use it.
Okay. We have 10 minutes. Let's take a question if there's still a question.
Could STOs possibly represent equity?
They could.
Repeat the question for everyone.
Oh, the question was, could STOs possibly represent equity? I know there was an extra word in there before represent. I think STOs could represent equity, but in that case, why call it an STO? Because then you don't necessarily, you might as well just call it what it is, which is equity in something, either a business or property or something like that. I know that the other thing, and I guess we didn't talk that much about the hype around offering a securitized token, is that token is kind of like another buzzword, and so that also draws people to know, to find out more about whatever the token does or gives you. But yes, I think it could be, it could represent equity.
So right now I'm writing some notes. So an STO is a buzzword for crowdfunding?
No, I don't think so.
I thought you needed a bunch of people to give you money.
Yes.
Isn't that crowdfunding?
At the most basic level. Yes.
I'm a basic
But I don't think people meant STOs to represent crowdfunding, because there are 4 different types of crowdfunding, and STO doesn't really fit into any of those buckets.
Okay, we're gonna get back to that one moment.
Okay.
And Sioma has another question for us, I believe.
There's 2. Okay, so
We'll
what are your thoughts on a U.S. citizen conducting an offshore STO not open to U.S. citizens?
Oh, this is actually Maureen's favorite question. So, so the question involves if you're a U.S. citizen and you're conducting an offshore STO or ICO, he actually wants to know what ramifications there are, he or she. And so I'm going to let Maureen take this, but I'm going to tell her to calm down first.
I'll just preface my answer with, if you're a U.S. person and you have a blue passport, it doesn't necessarily matter where you raise the money. When you bring the money back to the U.S., the IRS will want its cut. So I'll start with that. As far as having a U.S. person do an ICO or STO, I'm sorry, offshore, to me, I feel like if you are going to do an STO anyway, then I don't see why you would need to go offshore. The whole point of going offshore is to avoid SEC rules, or to at least not be subjugated to, following them. So if you are going to do an STO anyway, I think you're already admitting that whatever you're offering is a security. So I'm not certain why you would want to go offshore. But again, I mean, whatever your business model is, if it includes having an offshore location and maybe you feel like that market would be better, then that's one thing. The other option is that if you were a U.S. business, you could also use one of the regulations in the Securities Act to only raise funds from foreign investors. So that's
What's
another
that
option.
called?
It's called Regulation S.
So there's Reg CF, Reg A, Reg D, and Reg S.
Reg S. So there are options. Yes,
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Do you want to answer that? I thought that was
Yeah, that was very calm. That was very calm. I'm shocked.
Yes.
She's almost gotten pulled off planes yelling at people. Talking about you're an American unless you give up your passport. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. So if you do have a passport at home, flip to the very last page and bullet point D. It talks about your obligations for taxes. And so you're thinking, why would I pay taxes on my cryptos? Coinbase and the IRS, or rather the IRS has Coinbase list of people who traded more than $20,000. They're bumping it up against people who haven't claimed cryptocurrencies on their taxes.
Yeah.
So just wait, you might get a love letter from the IRS if you're a cryptocurrency investor.
And they have 3 years to do it. So just because you don't hear anything this year doesn't mean anything. They have 3 years from the date you file.
Congratulations, you're going to be in a long-term relationship with the IRS. What's the next question?
For a buyer, what's the advantage of purchasing an STO versus an unregulated utility token?
I think one of the benefits is with the STO, at least the tokens, even though they are not anything you can actually touch, but they are backed by assets and revenue of the business. Whereas in the ICO model, it was only backed by an idea, right? So with the STO model, if you're going to register or get an exemption with the SEC, you do have to fill out documentation that tells what your assets are, what your financials are, who's on your team, things like that. Yeah. So I think that's one benefit.
No, the question was, what's the...
I'm sorry, I didn't say the question, yeah.
What's the benefit of an STO versus an unregulated ICO? And again, if you're in an unregulated space, you just get got, you get got. You can't help it. There's no one to complain to.
That's not true. You can complain to the SEC.
Oh, you can go drop a diamond snitch, and what are they going to do?
Well, they could go and investigate it and might maybe ask that company questions. That's another way that they enforce their rules, right? By finding out that someone's been harmed or defrauded.
So there is
defrauded.
Defrauded? I don't know. I'm not a
Is
lawyer.
that Victoria?
Yes, so, there's 2 court cases going on, Tezos and Ripple at the moment. The general consensus is that Ripple, again, I'm not a lawyer, that Ripple is an ongoing, is a perpetual unregulated initial coin offering. That's out of California. So people can go complain to the regulators, and we'll see how that all works out. They're not the only court case. If you go to the North American Securities Association, just type in North American Securities Association, you can see a whole list of cease and desist information requests that they've put out. They've got about 83 names on that list. We'll actually put that we'll put a link somewhere.
And you can also go on the SEC's website. So a lot of those, some of those hearings are public. So if you were interested, you could possibly sit in on one of those hearings.
Cool. What's our next question?
You said it matters how you use a token. Can you elaborate on that?
So I think I was saying that in relation to a utility token. So I think most people, when they think utility token, you think that it has some sort of use. And maybe it doesn't have use at the time that you raise the funds, but over at some point after you've raised the funds and you've developed your project, then you can come back to the platform and use it, or that ecosystem, and use the token. So when I say it depends on how you use it, if you are using that same token that you might use on your platform later to get investors in, to give you money to raise capital to start your business, develop your project, etc., then that token is not, at that point, it's not a utility token. Right now, it's an investment contract or an investment scheme.
What she said.
What do you see more as the future of digital currency? The coins, token, etc., or the underlying blockchain approach to such technologies?
Can I answer this question?
Yes, you're like, go ahead.
No, we're going to wrap up in the next 2 minutes. And so the question is, what is the future of blockchain and digital currencies? So we actually have digital currencies right now. If you have a credit card, it's like a digital currency. Very few people actually have cash on them at any given point in time. So we're already very well embraced for digital currencies. And so digital currencies, I like to categorize them, are those currencies that are fiat issued, meaning issued by a government, whereas cryptocurrencies, they don't have explicit government backing. So let's make sure we're clear on those two things, because Bitcoin is not a digital currency, it is a cryptocurrency. There's actually a big difference between the two. We'll have to do a follow-up that since we only have 2 minutes left. So I actually think that the future is actually blockchain, the technology. I'm fond of saying that cryptocurrencies are a blockchain education, awareness, and adoption campaign. Because otherwise, we're not going to get you very interested in how data is structured, shared, transferred, or conveyed. You just don't care that much. And so the future is tokenization, particularly when we talk about IoT, Internet of Things, smart cities, and blockchain networks, as well as autonomous cars. So the future is bright for blockchain, the technology. You'll see that right now there's about 1,600 cryptocurrencies with another 4,200 initial coin offerings in the process. Do we need over 5,000 different types of currencies? We actually don't even need that many types of pins. And so you're going to see a decline in cryptocurrencies while you're going to see an uptake in blockchain, the technology. And it'll be very similar to Linux. In 2007, the Linux operating system changed the world, and now no one cares about it at all. Linux is what makes your iPhone and your smartwatch work. Blockchain is a technology. Soon it'll be an infrastructure, sort of like Wi-Fi. I could explain it to you how it worked, and you don't care. So we're
so long as it works, right?
So long as it works. So we're not there yet, but we're gonna get there. So the future is bright. We have a lot of unanswered questions. We're gonna go to the regulators and ask them to be nice to startups and entrepreneurs like myself, so that we don't have to pay these exorbitant prices that the lawyers require.
Okay. There was not a number dropped, so I don't know where you got the exorbitant word from, but any last question?
No, it's 8:30.
Okay.
You get the last word.
Oh, are we not going to ask a question? Oh, okay. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to folks who are here live. And if you have any other questions, you can reach me at at Crowdy Advisors on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And I'm also of counsel to Cogent Law Group here in DC. And my email there is mmurat@cogentlaw.co. And I think that's it. Anything else?
My name is Samson.